Fate Stay Night, not to be confused with Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, Fate Stay Night Heaven's Feel 1 Presage Flower, or Fate Zero, or Fate Apocrypha, or Fate
Several days later.
And that fanfiction I wrote about Rin Tosaka being my girlfriend. I mean Fate Khalid. After a mysterious inferno kills his family, Shiro is saved and adopted by Kiritsugu Emiya, who teaches him the ways of magic and justice. One night, years after Kiritsugu's death, Shiro is cleaning at school when he finds himself caught in the middle of a deadly encounter between two superhumans known as servants. During his attempt to escape, the boy is caught by one of the servants and receives a life-threatening injury. Miraculously, he survives, but the same servant returns to finish what he started. In desperation, Shiro summons a servant of his own, a knight named Saber. The two must now participate in the 5th Holy Grail War, a battle royale of 7 servants and the mages who summoned them, with the grand prize being none other than the omnipotent Holy Grail itself. Fate Stay Night follows Shiro as he struggles to find the line between a hero and a killer, his ideals clashing with the harsh reality around him. Will the boy become a hero like his foster father, or die trying? Fate Stay Night is from Studio Dean, the studio which has brought you some anime you've probably watched. One of those is maybe Konosuba, another is Log Horizon, but they also did You're Under Arrest, which if you haven't watched, you probably should. It's on High Dive. It's my favorite anime from Studio Dean, so you got the seal of approval from me. This anime, though, is 24 episodes and is based off the Fate Stay Night visual novel by Type Moon. It adapts one of the 3 lines in the game, the Fate Route. It was also released in 2006, which is considered by many people to be the best year in anime history, arguably. The anime is directed by Yuji Yamaguchi, who went on to direct Unlimited Blade Works as well. Otherwise, he has worked on anime like Cowboy Bebop and Detective Conan, among other series. So to start off, I'm not going to say I think this is a bad anime or it's the worst thing to happen to the Fate series. Far from it. This is probably one of my favorite Fate anime out right now. That being said, I have only seen UBW Zero in the first Heaven's Feel movie, but I think for me this anime sits comfortably near the top. And I think a big part of that is because I looked at this anime from a what-if perspective almost exclusively, and that is how I think most people will look at it. What if Shiro and Saber were in a romantic relationship? I think that alone sells the anime for a lot of people, including myself. But I think what this series does even better is that this is an anime that is the best of a lot of different worlds. You have a solid romance, solid action, great characters, and you can also add on that nostalgic factor from 2006. Like I said, considered by many to arguably be the best year in anime. But it can't be denied the multitude of problems this series has. The first I want to mention is the somewhat messy beginning to Shiro and Saber's relationship. Originally, I wasn't too adverse to this relationship, as honestly, I was kind of morbidly curious as to how this relationship would be handled. There is no reason not to tell a story where Shiro can fall in love with Saber. I don't think that's the problem at all. But the execution was somewhat messy, and in very few places did it ever get fully realized. The main problem is that this relationship takes way too long to develop, and on top of that, it sacrifices a lot to get rolling. So much so that Rin Tosaka basically becomes the main character for a good portion of this series. This isn't a bad thing either. I think that Rin Tosaka in this anime is likely one of the best characters, even if the romance worked out in the beginning. The trade-off, though, is now Saber is less, well, Saber. She's more of like a normal woman than a king, and that's kind of unfortunate. My favorite thing about Saber is she carries herself as an unstoppable killing machine at times. Yet, in Fate Stay Night, for the most part, she has to rely on Shiro and Tosaka. She is the wielder of the Excalibur, yet she can't get the job done. It's kind of disappointing. And one of the more egregious faults of this series is characters getting pretty much deleted throughout. And I don't expect much from a character like Sakura in a series about Shiro and Saber as your leads, but I sure as hell don't expect her to get deleted for a lot of it, and then show back up and have some importance and then just go back to being deleted again. But what is worse is that our integral character to the plot, likely the best character in this series, Rin Tosaka, she is deleted near the end of this show. And yeah, they take up until the end of the series the best character and remove her for reasons? Of course, she does show back up later on, but at what cost? Another problem I had is this series relying on Saber's backstory to develop Saber, and I'll admit, it works, but these scenes are so short and few and far that you might as well not have them at all. Plus, they rely completely on that to develop Saber, which is a huge mistake. I could have had a candid conversation between Shiro and Saber talking about her past rather than getting the flashbacks that we got. That being said, this anime in particular really made me want a full anime about Saber's backstory. So make it happen, Type Moon and UFO Table. But does this mean that this story is worthless, not good? The worst thing about the Fate series? No, there are so many great takeaways to be had in this anime. For starters, most of the series is paced extremely well, and while some episodes do suffer from the dreaded Shiro and Saber need to blush at each other for a couple minute moments, it's still paced very well. Not only that, but the big action that happens in this series is always built up in a proper way. Saber using her noble phantasm, or even Ryder using hers. It's all built up very well and properly developed. This, to me, is the core strength of this series. It definitely knows how to pace things and knows when to get down to business to make up for some of its shortcomings. So if you're wary of the issues, just know that in the end, while they are issues and while they are very important and detrimental to this series, they still don't manage to derail this series from completing the objective it originally sets out to do. The characters in Fate Stay Night are good, but for our main characters, it takes a moment for them to really develop properly. For example, Shiro and Saber are characters that, for the better part of this series, struggle to find proper footing in the plot. One scene, Saber is a badass, the next, she's helpless, and then there is her being walked in on while she's taking a shower. I feel like Saber, for the early part of this series, was playing too many roles, most of which did not fit her, like the fanservice eye candy stuff. If you want to find naked pictures of Saber, just play the visual novel or just go on the internet. But then, you have these great characters like Rin Tosaka, who literally carries the show when Saber and Shiro are head over heels. To me, this is the best character along with Gilgamesh in Fate Stay Night. She's a well-written female heroine who is tough and doesn't fall into the please save me Shiro trap that Saber does in the early episodes. Of course though, you also have just downright ignored characters like Fujine, Sakura, and even Archer, who are all but relevant to this anime. And this is sad as well, because Archer is such a great servant in Unlimited Blade Works, and in this he's just kind of there. But I do want to end this on a positive note. Fate Stay Night, for all of its shortcomings, has many moments of brilliance with characters and its writing and development. It sucks to see characters go away, but the payoff for sticking through it is more than rewarding, at least to me. So, this anime is beautiful, and for an anime that came out in 2006, it looks like it came out of 2010 or 2009. Now, there are some weird parts, like the CGI dragon, which is a metaphor for one of Saber's organs, can you guess? And just some fugly looking wide shots that make Rin look like a half-dead fish. Not kidding. But outside of those moments, you get some of the most enjoyable looking anime 2006 has to offer. The background art feels like it's straight out of the visual novel, and with a budget that would make the visual novel budget cry. And the character models have a certain fullness to them that even UFO tables seem to be lacking sometimes. I'll explain it this way. UFO table designs for their characters look somewhat thin. Dean applied their own take to it and made the characters look less like a pencil and more like traditional anime characters from something like a shonen. In my opinion, I enjoy the character designs from Dean just maybe a smidge more than UFO tables. As for the animation, it's much of the same story you'd get with the art. You get your CGI dragons, fugly wide shots that look weird, but you also get Gilgamesh vs. Saber, which in my opinion may be one of the best looking fights from a pure 2D animation perspective in the Fate series right now. Now I won't dare to say it compares to UFO Table in terms of an effects perspective, but looking at it from the time and the technology, it's one of my favorite fights in the series. The detail in this animation is just so good. As for the other fights, some do sadly save on budget, but then again we get fights like Shiro versus Ryder, and I think that fight looks awesome as well. Honestly, this anime doesn't have but maybe 2 or 3 bad looking moments animation wise, which I think is kinda to be expected. It is a Fate anime after all, and it's by Studio Dean. The score is by Kenji Kawai, who has been in the industry for a while and has worked on a lot of properties like Fate Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works, the Devilman OVAs, and most notably did the score for the first 2 Ghost in the Shell films. He's very accomplished and has made some really great scores. So, how does he do here? Well, he does great here as expected. It's Kenji Kawai. This score has some really awesome music backing it, and at its best is some highly memorable stuff. This score comes off as really thoughtful, almost as much as some of the stuff you see in the first Ghost in the Shell film. He does a very good job at conveying certain emotions and knowing when to let scenes breathe or to attach a really huge sounding score to it. But also, I can't not mention the opening and endings, and they're also done by Kenji Kawai. So what's not to look forward to in the score for this anime? I'm going to say a lot of things about the English dub. A lot of bad and a lot of good. So first off, I'll get the bad right out of the way. This dub has way too many stiff lines being delivered. I know it's from 2006, but when you look at the cast and the time this came out, there were no excuses for the amount of stiff lines that were in this anime. I mean, granted, it's not the worst thing ever, it's just mildly stiffed lines at the worst, but the quantity of them was astonishing. I think maybe every other episode there was at least 1 or 2 stiffed lines. Now that being said, this is one of my favorite casts in all of the Fate series. You have people like Mela Lee playing Rin Tosaka, who plays her in the dub to this day, and the amazing Kate Higgins is Saber and Sam Riegel as Shiro. This to me is a great cast. I would go as far to say that Sam Riegel as Shiro is a much better fit for Shiro than Bryce Papenbrook, and I'm a huge fan of Bryce. So yeah, there are a lot of stiff lines, but I guess the cast kind of makes up for that in a weird way. Fate Stay Night was an anime that was too big for its own britches. In other words, it was really ambitious. From a visual perspective, this anime is gorgeous. It has some of the best animation and fighting of the 2000s, and you could tell this is an anime where Studio Dean was firing on all cylinders during the making of. But the story, sadly, was at times a mess, and at times a spectacle, and at times a heartfelt romance. It was a lot of things, but it was all at once. And because of the inconsistencies of the writing, this series will likely be the red-headed stepchild of the Fate series. And that's sad, but not surprising. Now, that being said, this series does deserve to be watched by not only Fate fans, but people who just like a good, fun story with some of the best animation from its era, with thought-provoking characters and a story that captures the imagination. This anime gets a recommendation from me for anyone searching for a great action anime. And with that being said, I'll do a review of Heaven's Feel if you guys want me to. Put down in the comments below if you want me to do a Heaven's Feel review. I'll do it. I swear I will. What do you guys think about Fate Stay Night? If you've watched it, or if you haven't, did my review convince you to watch it? Did it convince you not to watch it? And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon button as well. That's very important. You gotta hit that as well. So, and make sure you get all the videos I upload. Anyways, I appreciate all the support you give me. I'll see you guys later.